Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode Between Two Studs. I'm Alex Studd.
And I'm Ron Studd.
And Ron, tonight for episode 46, we got Mr. Andrew Chisholm on the line with us. Andrew, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well.
Drew,
how are you guys?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you on. I know you've listened to quite a few of our episodes, so you're going to have to keep us on track, all right? Make sure we are going through, hitting the milestones, making sure we're on our A game tonight. Now, as tradition, Drew, before we get started, as you know, Ron and I have to pay respects to both you and the sponsor of the show, Malort. So, cheers to you, Drew. Now, Drew, before we dive into the Ember round, I believe,
yes.
Did you end up having Malort at my wedding last year?
Let's just say I don't remember.
That's a great answer.
I don't remember. I remember most of the night, but I'm sure I did.
You were a fiend on the dance floor in the most complimentary way ever. By the end of the night, your beard, which for those who are watching the YouTube video of this, is quite impressive. And we're going to talk about the beard later in the show. But that was all drenched, and you were just having the best time of your life on the dance floor, dancing along to 80s and 90s hits. It was a wonderful thing.
I think everyone at that wedding was having the time of their life. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time all around. All right, hey, buckle up, Drew. You have entered the Ember round.
I've been waiting for this. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Here we go.
All right, so Drew, first question. I didn't actually spoil it this time, Ron. Ron always is upset. He goes, "Oh, you kind of in the introduction, you kind of ruined it." I didn't go into any details here, but for those who've been listening to a lot of episodes, they may have figured it out by your last name. But Drew, how do you know us? What's the story?
Long time ago, there was two people that fell in love in Olean, New York. They produced 11 children. My father's number 3. Your mother was number 7. I knew that. And then, fun fact, your mother is my godmother. So I don't know if you guys even knew that. So
I actually did not know that.
I wasn't aware either.
Yeah, she's my godmother. Yeah, because we actually, when you guys were living in Olean, you guys were my closest cousins on that side of the family.
Well, and I was going to say, so there was 11 children, and we've talked about this on other episodes. By the time 1998, 1999, pretty much everyone had left, except my parents, the Studds, had stayed in Olean, and then your family down the road in Coudersport. And pretty much everyone else had left. So it was one of those things, unless we were going down to Virginia to see the Mangan family, if we were getting together with family, it was your family.
Right. And, we'd go up to Humphrey and spend time at Grandma and Grandpa's and meet. And I remember you guys lived in a blue house for a while, if I remember right.
Yep.
Right behind the railroad tracks.
Yep.
Yeah, there's small memories there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are some of your areas of interest?
Currently residing in central Pennsylvania. I've moved around a little bit in my young career here. I love, as of late, running, biking, hiking, walking, being active. I'm a huge sports fanatic, huge Buffalo Bills fan. Love the Buffalo Sabres. Don't mind professional sports as well with baseball, basketball, and things like that. I love the movies. I love watching TV and different old TV shows and things like that. Outside of that, just living life and learning as much as I can throughout the life.
So I have to ask a question, because we're going to talk about sports later in the show. But so you're in what I call the Harrisburg, Lancaster, Hershey area. Yet everyone I've ever met, they always say it's central Pennsylvania. You said it's central Pennsylvania. Yet it's south central. No one ever says that, right? I mean, central would be like Penn State.
Yeah. So if you're looking geographically, yes, State College, Penn State is central Pennsylvania. But Harrisburg, Hershey, I think, outside of College game days, is the number 3 largest area in the state. So central Pennsylvania is Harrisburg, Hershey, Lancaster area. So I think it's central Pennsylvania.
I mean,
and if you think about it, if you think about it, you go north of State College. There's nothing there. So,
I mean, you're right. Most of Pennsylvania is very rural, but it's interesting to me, as someone who has no roots there. It's like, yeah, but if someone were to say central Pennsylvania, and I didn't know geographically where it is, I'm circling Penn State, but it's like you're really close to Maryland, really close.
Yes, we can get there in under an hour, like probably 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I had to call out the geography. I had to call it out.
Absolutely. I get it.
All right. Speaking of something that my geography gets worse and worse as I drink more and more, what are you currently drinking?
I am drinking, because of the Western New York roots that is here tonight, I'm drinking Genesee Light, the last can of it I have that I purchased in Western New York, so I have to go up this weekend to get more.
Ooh.
You know what's so funny is I don't know if I've ever had that in my entire life, but I used to always drink the Screamers, Jenny Cream Ale.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Which people called Screamers because the way it would treat your body the next day, you'll be screaming. But yeah, Jenny Cream Ale, Western New York classic. Ron, what are you working on tonight?
I, too, am working on a good one. So this is Labatt Blue. So,
oh, wow. You two came prepared.
Yeah.
You know, before the show started, all of a sudden they looked at me and they're like, Alex, you're not wearing any Bills attire. So I had to put on a Bills shirt because they were already decked out. And I didn't have any Western New York beverages. It's the off season. Right? I don't have any Labatt's on me. So tonight I'm totally drinking something that has zero roots to Western New York, Akashi, which is Japanese whiskey. Very delicious.
Well, very nice. All right. So, Andrew, as somebody who's listened to the show for an incredibly long time, which thank you for being an awesome listener, you know about this next question. This is the question that we love because we always get some amazing responses. And this is the question: pick a piece of art that could be song, movie, book, painting, experience, poem, you name it, that really resonates with you, and tell us about that.
So I'm going to start off by saying your guys' question in all 40 episodes or plus episodes I've listened to, I've actually asked my friends, other family members, coworkers, as like a conversation starter. So I want to thank you guys for that. But my piece of art is the Buffalo Bills logo. And I think you guys as Bills fans, you guys are going to understand what the Bills Mafia and the Bills fan base and the Bills team mean to an entire group of people. And you're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, and what they do for the community, what they do for the world, and things like that. I look at what they did to Andy Dalton after he sent the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs and donated so much money to his charity. The hard work, the ethic, the blue-collar mentality, and all of that stuff, that's who I want to be. I want to be generous. I want to be out there and help the others in need. I like how we donated money to Josh Allen's, the hospital, in honor of Josh Allen's grandmother, and things like that. It just, that whole mentality of the Bills Mafia and the Buffalo Bills, just, I love that way of life, and that's why I think I'm such a big fan and proud to be a Bills Mafia member.
Yeah, and this is something that Ron and I have talked about on previous episodes. But, I think if you're not familiar with Western New York culture, it's one of those things where we don't have a whole lot. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean that almost as a sense of pride, that it's very blue-collar. We don't get the big entertainers coming to Buffalo. There are limited sources of entertainment, and most of the time when people talk about Western New York, it's a weather joke. And so there's people who are there who are very proud. And in fact, I think the reason that the fan base is so passionate, this is my opinion, I'm curious your thoughts, because so many people who have Western New York roots had to leave for economic reasons. There just weren't jobs there anymore. They didn't want to leave. they were forced to leave. And I think our family is an example of that, right? The greater Chisholm family, there was 11 children that were all born and grew up only in New York, and today none of them live there. And they all needed to find financial opportunity. And so if there's one thing that kind of ties you back and says, listen, my heart is still in Western New York, it's the Buffalo Bills.
Yes. I mean, I'm a huge Bills fan, and the whole area, but even I'm not back there, and the opportunities are few and far between. But I just know that the fan base, the people, the mentality up there, it's unlike any other I've ever seen. And you guys have traveled more than I have, and I've only been in a few cities, so I'm sure you guys have more experience of what it's like in different cities that have these mega sports teams. But even just looking in that Western New York world, beyond the sports, you're right, there's not much there. But what they do have there, they are proud of. And people do have to leave. Some of them leave for the weather. I get it, snowbirds. But there's not much there anymore. And I hope that they do get a chance to get it back.
Yeah. The only city that I think has any similarity in terms of that level of passion is the Green Bay Packers. But really, where the difference lies is they've had so much success as a team in the last 20 or 30 years that I don't think they fully. And of course, Packers fans listening are gonna yell at me for this, but I just don't think they fully understand or enjoy the appreciation of, wow, year after year we are the butt of jokes, and we just want to be represented on the national stage. And after years of being this dumpster fire team, which, by the way, only Bills fans can say that. If anyone else said that, I'd be mad at them. But, I can say that, right? You can say that. As a team that was so bad for so long, to see them represented on the national stage, it's so exciting again. Like, to see them beating, these teams that you would say Buffalo would never compete. Buffalo, New York would never compete with Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or Washington, D.C., or Los Angeles, or Dallas on any type of city to city. But somehow our team can go in, our football team can go in and kick their ass. And I know that sounds ridiculous maybe as someone who's not a sports fan, that, it's more than just the game. It's like, no, Western New York for one night is better than Dallas, right? Like, it's that sentiment. Like, yeah, we're better than them. Like, we kick their ass. I don't know how to explain it. That's what it is, right?
It's absolutely insane to think that you're right. For one night, we are the best team or the best city in the country. But for everything else, yeah, we've got Niagara Falls right there, and we got some great alcohol floating around, and we know how to drink and jump on tables. But that's about it. I mean, what else do we have there that can really support the history? Unfortunately, I can't think of very many historical things that have happened in Buffalo. Not like your Philadelphia, Surrey, New York.
I will counter that, but for the sake of brevity of the show, I won't get into it too much. But there are so much. I mean, keep in mind at the turn of the century in 1900, Buffalo was the 8th largest city in the United States. There were more millionaires per capita in Buffalo than anywhere else in the world. And I mean, when you think about the windshield wiper, that was invented in Buffalo. Believe it or not, some of the early air conditioners were invented in Buffalo. Why? Because a lot of people go, well, Buffalo, New York, air conditioning. What? No, it's for lagers. They wanted to be able to make lagers, beer, all year round. So there's a lot of history there. Grain elevators, a lot of the first elevators were first. I mean, this was an industrial city that had a lot of firsts. And unfortunately, fell off. Yeah, exactly. But when you look at any major skyscraper in the United States that has been there, I mean, you look at the Empire State Building, you know, if you don't, you should. You should know that there was steel that was from Buffalo, New York, right, made in Lackawanna, that is in that is still there to this day, right? Like that's a cool thing that you should hold your hat on.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm proud to be from there. I just sometimes you never know. The more you know.
Yeah,
the more you know.
And Alex is certainly a fountain of knowledge when it comes to history, which is awesome. It's always cool to hear.
Hey, so I have to ask before we move on to the next question. You said the Buffalo Bills logo. I have to ask.
Good.
Which
I'm glad
one?
you asked this. Yeah. Or
the
standing
current
Buffalo.
the current Bills logo, or the standing Buffalo logo?
The current Bills. The standing Buffalo, while, again, going to historical knowledge and basis, and I love how that was the original, or one of the ones, it's just not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea.
And it's funny, that's where Ron and I actually prefer the standing Buffalo. But I mean, obviously, I still love the current ones.
Yeah. I like the new one personally more, but I can appreciate the standing Buffalo. It's just, I like the new one more personally.
I'll look at it. I'll cheer them on. But realistically, outside of this shirt with that standing Buffalo,
Yep.
it's the only thing I own with the standing Buffalo on it.
All right, for our next question. So, this is the new one that we added this season. I know you know this. And actually, what's fun is you're getting all the benefit of what was learned last season. And then one of the other things that we've added, which we will get to shortly. But name one way that COVID has impacted you, hopefully in a positive way. As we mentioned always, Alex and I started this podcast. Hopefully you have something similar that's positive, but we're all ears.
I actually started running a lot more, and I ran my first half marathon at the end of it. I'm looking to continue to run more, but that's it. I lost a lot of weight and things like that. So that's, believe it or not, my COVID story. I was furloughed, and a lot of people might think that's sad or something like that, but I started walking. I walked. I lost a lot of weight, and I grew a really cool beard, and I haven't turned back since, and just taken the opportunities to figure it out. But the one thing I will say is I was this close to traveling the country during my furlough, and I got to Chicago, and I was in the middle of my first Chicago pizza, and I got the call, come back to work. So I had to turn around in Chicago.
Wow. I never knew that story.
Work. Yes. I was out there helping my sister move, and we were in the middle of our first pizza, because I'm sitting there going, all right, if I'm going to Chicago, I'm getting a Chicago pizza. First slice, I get a phone call. You come back to work. So I turned around and went back.
You'll never eat pizza from Chicago the same way again.
Well, either that, or if I'm out of work, I'm going to go be there right away.
Now, question though, was it tavern style or deep dish?
Deep dish.
Okay, just checking.
Ron, tavern style, that's for like locals. And I don't mean that
I'm
in a
just
disparaging way,
checking.
Drew.
Sure.
I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but like if you're someone who's never been to Chicago or only a handful of times, you're going to go deep dish. But for our Chicago listeners, I'm sure they wanted to know the answer.
I was there, and I said I want to do all the touristy things that I can during a COVID time, and that was one of them, was get a deep dish pizza. I'll have it one time, and maybe again, but I think next time I go, I'll be looking. I tried two, and I don't know if I finished the second one. I don't remember.
That's awesome. Well, and we're going to talk about your running journey a little bit later on. But yes, Ron, go ahead. You've completed the Ember round. Congratulations, Drew.
Oh, thank you.
So you're out of the Ember round. We're going to dive into this. But one of the things we've been doing on more recent episodes that you might be familiar with is what we call the speed rounds, where we kind of throw some very general topics at you, things that we know you have a connection to one way, shape, or form. And we want to get your initial reaction. Just 5 words or less. And Ron's a stickler for this. 5 words or less. Give us your initial impression, and then we'll probably ask you for more clarity on it. Ron and I are going to go back and forth giving you the list. Is that all right?
That works. Let's do this.
All right. Buckle up. First one. Hershey chocolate.
Sweet milk goodness. I'm going to stop at 3.
I mean, it's
what more do you need?
Right. And it's such a universal icon. I mean, you see that brown chocolate bar, right? And it's just especially s'mores. Like, it's s'more season now, right? And when was the last time you saw somebody open up a s'more and they're like, yeah, can you give me the generic chocolate, or can you get me, like, what even would you substitute? Like, I mean, yes, you can do Reese's Cups, but outside of that, like, for the traditional chocolate...
Well, and Reese's Cups are using what?
Hershey chocolate anyway.
Right, and other substitutes are mostly all Hershey products.
Right.
If you're going to substitute, put a Kit Kat in it. I mean, that's actually pretty good if you've never tried it. Or a white almond bar. That's actually pretty good, too. But, yeah, milk, tasty, sweet, goodness. It's good.
You know what's funny is, and I,
Yes.
we all grew up with Hershey chocolate is the standard of what chocolate tastes like. And, of course, I don't know if you've both interacted with many international people, but a lot of international people do not actually like the taste of Hershey chocolate. And I never understood why. And actually, one of my nights where I had way too much time on my hands, I was reading that one of the things that makes Hershey so unique is when they were actually using the milk and incorporating it in, there was a process that they used that gives it a little bit, if you're not used to the flavor, a little bit of a like a tartness, and which some people, like Europeans in a disparaging way, will say it tastes like throw up. And it's funny, I never noticed it until I really tried it with that perspective, especially after you have it against European chocolate. And there is a big difference. I love Hershey chocolate, but there is this I don't know how to. Next time you have chocolate, Hershey's, think about this, like, from a European perspective, that it tastes like throw up or vomit or something. It doesn't, but it has this, like, bitterness, tanginess, and it's the way they make it. I don't know. It's very interesting.
I hear that, but, man, if I'm having some Hershey's chocolate, I don't want to be thinking about that. All honesty.
You have a different appreciation.
It's fair. But yeah, I've heard like the Cadbury, like that's got a, especially the international Cadbury, definitely has a very different flavor to it. And I have heard that. It's almost like spoiled milk or something is kind of what I've also heard it kind of thrown around as.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Let's keep moving on.
Yeah. Next one, Adelphia Cable.
Beneficial to community, upsetting.
And so you have to give everyone, especially younger listeners, a little bit more
information. So I was born and raised in a town called Coudersport, Pennsylvania. That was the home of Adelphia Cable Communications. That, in its height, was the 5th or 6th largest cable company in the country. There was some illegal activity at the top. It then crashed. People went to jail. The whole community was built up by this company. The town actually doubled or tripled in population on a workday, and then people left. And then when it closed, essentially, and parts were sold off and everything, the community never. It's beginning to recover now, but it never really truly came back to where it was at its time. There were buildings that still sit vacant that were built by Adelphia. And so at the height of it, it was great. There was jobs galore in Coudersport, Pennsylvania, which is a 2 red light town to this day. But now it's hard. There's no other major industry except for tourism in the town. And it's kind of upsetting and things like that to think that they grew so big and did it in a illegal fashion to make it to do what happened to the town.
Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with the story, this is a small town. I mean, you said it, 2 lights. I mean, we were from the quote-unquote big city only, right, in comparison. And, this is a town that had dirt roads, and all of a sudden there was so much money pumped in. This is around the same time where the scandal happened. WorldCom, Enron, it was all around that same period. And, in the end, there was a father, and we'll never know the true story. Everyone has their opinions. Most people like the father, but he had sons, and the sons were pilfering. That's the story, and it ended up taking the whole town down with it. But this was what's amazing to me, and Ron, of course, has perspective as someone who works in the cable industry. But what ended up becoming of Adelphia, right, when it ended up being liquidated, largely was helped Comcast become what it is today. I mean, Ron, tell me if I'm wrong, Comcast bought up all of what Adelphia had in Colorado. And basically they bought it for pennies on the dollar. And that helped them become what they are today. This giant business.
There was a lot of that. And I do want to say that there was some parts of AT&T that I think they were running something out of Colorado as well. Because there was at one point questions whether or not Comcast wanted to headquarter in Denver or Philadelphia, and they chose Philadelphia. But really unfortunate history. And it's interesting, even today, there's people that I work with in communications who are like, oh yeah, I work for Adelphia. And I was like, did you ever go to Countersport? And how many people can say that they've been to Countersport, had it not been for Adelphia, right? So I think it's unfortunate, but it's an interesting tie.
I don't normally say this when Adelphia comes up, but as three guys who have direct ties to Western New York, one of the things that, we talked about Buffalo, New York, and it just seems like they just kept getting kicked. And every time there was an opportunity, it's just like one more thing that, that devastated them economically. And one of the things that a lot of people forget about is there was like a 35 or 40-story building that was in the works to be built in downtown Buffalo. And I don't know if they were going to officially move their headquarters from Countersport or if it was going to be like a
satellite office,
combined, like a co-headquarters. But what's fascinating to think about is, you go to Philadelphia today, you spend 5 minutes in Philadelphia, and you're like, Comcast runs this city. Right? And I'm not saying Buffalo would have ever been to that level, but it is amazing to think, wow, Buffalo could have benefited tremendously from a Comcast being there. And of course, Adelphia never ended up becoming what Comcast did. But it makes you wonder, right?
Oh, it does. That, and to be honest, I never really knew that about that structure, because in my world, I'm still in middle school, high school when all this is going down. And I was actually seeing the more literal things going on in the town.
Yeah, in your backyard.
In my backyard, literally, that were being finished or unfinished. There was buildings with tennis courts in it that were to be used as recreational for employees that never got opened. And then there's one building right next to McDonald's that was the Taj Mahal that never opened. And then there was a golf course that was probably, when it closed, if you had $1 million, you probably could have finished it. And it was a PGA level golf course that was that close to being finished and never opened. And
I mean,
middle of nowhere, Potter County, Countersport, Pennsylvania. You flew into Buffalo. Bradford probably might be the closest, but Buffalo is the next closest major airport that you flew into, and it was a 2.5-hour drive at that point.
All right. Well, next one. Interning for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
A lot of fun.
That's
Never
4.
again.
I started off so optimistic, and then it's like, no, never again. Yeah.
Wait, so give us the quick story, because I will say this before you say anything. PNC is one of my all-time favorite ballparks. I travel the country. I'm not even that big of a baseball fan, but I love it. To me, there's nothing more Americana than sitting in a ballpark with a beer and a hot dog. So I love PNC, that field. But what was your experience like?
Okay, so the field itself, most beautiful field I've ever seen. The experience itself with the people, greatest time of my life. Baseball, working in baseball, sounds like great. It's the greatest, America's greatest pastime, right? Until you sit through a 16 or a 17 inning game, and then you have to come back the next day to finish again, to do another game. That could go another 16, 18, 19 innings. And then you have to come back again and do it again, which could go another 16, 18 games.
81 home games.
And you do it 81. It's a week on, a week off, a week on, it's a week off. So anybody who works in baseball, those baseball players, what they go through to produce that, nothing but amazing. That's a marathon of a season. I love that park. I love the people. The great city of Pittsburgh-ish.
Yep.
But the 16-inning games, no. But it was a great time overall, but just never go back. As far as baseball.
Well, it's amazing because I'm not a huge baseball guy, but a lot of people say, oh, baseball players, they're not that athletic. And I go, 162 games in the middle of summer. It never ends. It just go like one game to the next. These people are they have to be an incredible fitness.
Oh yeah.
So I don't care if you think they're just sitting around. No, they're not.
No.
If you think about it, it's 162 games, and I think it's like 162 games in 180 days or something like that. If you do the math, they don't get many days off.
And you're flying all over the country.
And you're in a city for 3 days, and you go to the next city, or you're at home for a week. But yeah, it's a great time. Again, it's a great sport, beautiful ballpark. But when you're actually working, you're in for some marathon runs.
All right, next one, the Amish.
Great food, interesting lifestyle.
Yeah, so being right in, the heartland of the Amish community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see their lifestyle and what electronics or non-electronics they use. They don't use cell phones. Their horse and buggy still is to this day. The Amish house because there's no power or telephone cords going to the house. But the food, they know how to cook. Some of their dishes. I'm sure you guys have visited in Lancaster area and you have your own Lancaster dishes that you've known. But the the fly pie, whatever. No,
shoe fly pie. Yeah.
Shoe fly pie.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that is good. Some good stuff.
And any furniture they make, it's going to live like 20 generations.
Right. They are some hard workers.
Absolutely.
Beef and Barrel.
Greatest restaurant ever. Ever.
Yes, I agree. And I know part of it is just nostalgia. I know it is. This is like the restaurant in our hometown of Olean, New York. And I don't know if we've talked about it on the show before. We probably have. But there is something iconic about this institution. Where you go in, I always order the exact same thing. I get their chicken wings. I get their beef on wick. I get their German-style potato salad. And you're just gonna and their French onion soup.
French onion soup. I was gonna call it out.
Oh,
yeah. And it's in the crock and the cheese. And it's just like what it's a wonderful dish. It's a wonderful meal.
And the restaurant's so iconic. Like maybe I can as part of the show notes post a picture. Like there's these nice flower pots in front. Like when I'm saying this, I know these guys are immediately thinking of it. There's always these beautiful flowers that they put in. And it's just a really classy, nice restaurant. And it's so good. And it's kind of funny because anybody that I've asked who's ever happened to chance make their way into Olean, you say, have you ever been to the Beef and Barrel? And they're just like, oh, that place is amazing. And it's like, absolutely. It is solid.
I always said this. If I somehow did something horrendous and I got arrested and I'm going to be murdered, right? Capital punishment, right? I'm getting the guillotine or whatever. Last meal, I want the beef. I want the exact meal that I just told you.
It's not a bad way to go. It is a really good meal.
Yes, and not many people understand the beef on wick. I would be curious to know how many of your listeners actually know what a beef on wick is, because that is a Western New York staple.
We've talked about it on the show, but if you don't know what it is, be sure to Google it.
Yeah.
So good.
Hershey Park.
Yeah.
great fun in time rides / roller coasters.
You're pushing on that last one, but we'll let it slide.
Well, I meant to say roller coasters, which is one word, so
yeah, it's okay.
yeah.
We'll let it go.
It's a massive. I mean, it's cool. I mean, how many other like it's like a Six Flags like theme park right next to Hershey's headquarters. I mean, it's a cool.
Yeah.
And everything's like chocolate themed. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah. Yep, it is a sister company of the chocolate company. They are two separate companies, but yeah, everything in the park is chocolate themed. It's definitely Hershey branded, and it's just roller coasters. It's a Six Flags, it's a Disney esque park, and it's a lot of fun.
You're forgetting one thing. There's also the faint smell of chocolate airing throughout the park
Everywhere.
Too. It's wonderful. Like, you're just walking around, and even they have a really cool gift shop, too. It's, like, the only place I know that you can get, like, the 10-pound, like, bars of chocolate. Like, those things are cool.
So, yeah, I think you're talking about Chocolate World, which is actually the Hershey company. Yes, which is their entrances are right next to each other. So you go to Chocolate World and you go to Hershey Park, and the Chocolate World is one of the most unique places ever because it is as well. Yes, you have a 5-pound chocolate bar, a 1-pound Hershey Kiss, a half a pound Reese cup. I think it's a half.
Because that's all we needed those things.
Yeah, and you also need the 2.5-foot Twizzler. So
obviously.
All right, and our final one. We've been waiting for this one. The Buffalo Bills. And you have only 5 words to use. So best of luck on this one.
Oh.
Well, that's 2. Ooh, ah.
I mean, we could go stand up if you put your shirt up a little bit. I mean, that might be 5 words, right? So you
Bruce
got
Thurman,
four
Andre
words.
Jim. Bruce Thurman, Andre Jim, Marv.
Boom. Boom.
The legends. The legends. If you don't know who they are, Google them. We already talked about the Buffalo Bills, but what a wonderful, wonderful organization.
Yes. Lots of
That's all
history.
we have to say. That's all we have to say. Hey, so what we're going to do, Drew, you made it through fire round, speed round, whatever we call it. You made it through the Ember rounds. We're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to dive into your career in events management. And then we're going to talk about your running journey, your beer journey, and there's a lot to talk about. So we'll be right back after these fine messages.
Hey, I know what you're thinking. Right now might be a good time to go and get a quick break, but here's the thing. I'm thinking that you could also use this as a good opportunity to like, subscribe, and drop a comment on this video. It would help us. It would also get the search algorithms to make sure that this video pops up for more people. So we'd really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right, welcome back to Between Two Studs. We're hanging out with Andrew Chisholm, and we just went through, well, a lot. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. But I do want to kind of reset everything, right? And kind of get back to who you are. Because from what I understand, you graduated with a degree in sports management. And then you worked for the Pirates, and then you also worked for what are now called the Charlotte Hornets. Now, can you talk about those experiences real quick?
Yeah, briefly. So I went to Slippery Rock University and graduated with a degree in, actually, the proper term is sport. There's no S at the end. Fun fact. Sports management. Yes. And that was to encompass the entertainment world.
You're really good at one sport manage. You're managing one sport.
It's actually more to encompass more. Because sports is more ball and stick and things like that.
Sporty management.
Or esports? It's inclusive of esports now.
No. Well, sport was more to include entertainment and other fun facts like that. So it included all of the entertainment in the sport industry. But I got my degree from Slippery Rock University Sport Management. I then did internships with the Charlotte Bobcats, the Pittsburgh Pirates, went to work for them for a little bit, worked for the David L. Lawrence Convention Center for a little bit, the Bobcats, and then was there during the transition into the Hornets. My experiences were unbelievable, things that some kids dream of doing. I very, very, very lucky to do the opportunities I've had. Just people I've met, experiences I've worked. I've worked a national convention. I have worked baseball games, basketball games, hockey games, and been right down next to the ice and been near the field and things like that. And most people don't ever get to experience that unless you pay for it. And now you get paid for it. So it's like I get paid to go to these events every day or whatever. So it's been a unique experience. It's just some fun, odd things that most people don't ever get to do.
Yeah, I would imagine so. What city did you prefer living in? Charlotte or Pittsburgh?
At the time, Charlotte. Pittsburgh, with the bridges and the tunnels, and no one can drive through a tunnel in the city of Pittsburgh, that's why. And Pittsburgh was very sectional. I've learned that people, if you're from the North Pittsburgh, you stay in North Pittsburgh. Things like that. And it just was very, boom. Charlotte was a melting pot. I was in my 20s. It was, early 20s, early to mid-20s. That's where the scene was. There's bars. There was great atmosphere. There was NOTA. There was different events, things like that. It was just a great time to be in your mid-20s, learning, growing, and experiencing Charlotte. And then after a while, I kind of hit this point in my life where I said, this city's getting too big for me. I need out.
Yeah.
I'm not a big city person. We talked about how I'm from two red light town, and so everyone around here can see how big Charlotte is. It's too big of a town for me.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this before we move on. We talked about earlier baseball. We talked about 162 games.
Yeah.
I know I've been reading a lot of articles about how attendance, viewership, have been plummeting. Baseball used to be the number one sport in the United States, and then it was number 2, and now it's falling to number 3, behind basketball in the NFL. As a fan, as someone who worked for the sport as well, what are your thoughts on the future of baseball? Does baseball have a future?
I'm concerned. I'm really concerned, and it's multifaceted. I think the longevity of the game, the longevity of the season, it plays a factor. But I also see the longevity of the season as a plus as well, to be honest with you. Because we could be in April going, hey, you want to go to a game today? Yeah, let's go. And then we could do the same thing in September and October and July and August, and that's something you can't do in football or basketball. Or basketball, you could do it a little bit more, but it's harder. But I think the longevity of the season, the longevity of the games are becoming a thing. I also think that the imbalance of superstars. I mean, you look at the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers, and name one all-star that's currently playing for them. It's hard. But you can go to the Dodgers or the Yankees, and you could probably name their whole starting lineup. Yeah. And you're not even a fan.
I mean, you bring up a really interesting point, and I don't know what you do about it, because baseball, of all the sports in the United States, has the most history, and that's what's fun, right? Mm-hmm. I love looking at statistics, and I love having those conversations. Mm-hmm. But, man, the problem that I think baseball has, and Drew, I'm really curious your thoughts. I think baseball is the best sport to be in person. I would rather go to a ball game for baseball than an NFL game, than an NHL game, than an NBA game. However, baseball is at the bottom of what I want to watch on television. Watching baseball on television, I don't think is very interesting. And the problem is, as we move further and further away from the 1970s or the 1980s, people watch more and more revenues generated from television, right? And I've always said, listen, I love going to one NFL game a year. I do. But I go for the tailgating experience, and then I just go to the game. The best place to be for an NFL football game, in my opinion, is right in front of the TV. It is the best seat in the house. It is the NFL was like designed to be watched on the television. It's a perfect game. Baseball, on the other hand, I need to be in person. I'm not going to sit home, come home from work, and watch 162 games on television. What do you do about that?
So I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts on that. And this is an ongoing problem. Everyone in this industry has talked about it. And they've all been experiencing it. In the schools, you do papers on it and things like that. This is not a hidden gem or anything like that. I honestly think it's the individual, and it's almost like a generational thing. But it's also who you are. Are you one that grew up loving baseball or loving that sport? And I think it's all about who you are, where you are, and things like that in your life. I know people that literally will watch every single Yankee game, or as many as they can, on the TV or go to a game. I actually, believe it or not, I love going to live sporting events. I love going to football games. I try to go to as many Bills games as I can, but I like watching it on TV as well. Believe it or not, I will watch it in person, then go home and watch it on TV. So that's interesting, but I don't go for the tailgate. I may have one alcoholic beverage
I go for the
Bills
tailgate.
game. I am one. I will have a water and 2 hot dogs and stand there and watch the entire game and be happy as a clam. But it's interesting to see the dynamic of live sports and people that don't want to go. I think hockey is a very good one to watch.
I agree.
It's fast. It's exciting. It never stops. But in person, a baseball game, to me, as a casual fan in baseball, and this isn't even having any of my history of working in the sport at all, it's a once-in-a-while thing. Hey, let's go catch a game, cousins, have fun, enjoy it, grab a beer, enjoy the game, catch up.
Let me interrupt you and say, Drew, the one thing I love about baseball is I can talk to the person sitting next to me casually the whole game. If I go to a Bills game or even a hockey game, and they keep chirping at me, I'm going to go, hey, shut up, I'm watching the game, man. There's something about baseball where it's like casual. Whoa, did you see that? Wow, that was a great hit. Right? And then I'm just drinking and having a beer in hand. And you're outside for most ballparks. There is something cool about that that I don't get with the other sports because there's almost too much stimulation with these other sports.
Well, I think some of that, too, just has to do with how consequential the games are. I mean, like, for the NFL, it's easy to kind of look at the records and be like, okay, if this is, if the Bills win this game, this will move them up to the top, right? And I think with baseball, it's like, all right, well,
who cares?
They're 40 games behind, they're 30 games, they're 20 ahead. Like, it don't matter. And I think the other thing, too, is the pacing. I mean, it's, like, interesting because, like, for the NFL, there's a lot of different decisions on, like, okay, what kind of play are we going to make? Given the situation, what do we do? Do we run the ball? Do we pass the ball? Whereas with baseball, it's like, okay, do you hit the ball or, do you not hit the ball? Right? And that's really up to the batter.
Of course, Ron, people would challenge you and say, well, there's a lot of different types of pitches.
Sure, and there's bunting, and I agree, but what I'm saying is in general, right, it's kind of like where hockey and soccer, I think, are, where you can look at the scoreboard and it's pretty easy, where you can have a few beers, and it really doesn't necessarily detract from the experience. In fact, I found that once I started having beers at baseball games, the value goes up tremendously. It is such a better game to watch, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas, like, to Andrew's point, like, yeah, you can go to an NFL game, not have anything to drink, and you're still going to have a great time too. I don't think that beer necessarily takes it up a level. It really doesn't.
Well, if I have to go piss during the bottom of the fourth, I don't care. I don't feel like I'm really missing anything.
Right.
You
may miss the one home run.
You miss the wrong play.
True.
Somebody has a pick six during a game when you went to the bathroom for a second. And that's
Yeah,
when you think, okay, yeah, we didn't. My team wasn't going to obviously go out of that. They were playing defense. Nope, you just missed a touchdown there.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind though is, and you guys both know this, in the NFL, if you go to an NFL game, there are so many TV timeouts that there's constant breaks. There's constant breaks. Versus when you're on the TV, when you're watching on a TV, I'm going to go fix myself a beverage. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I come back, and it's centered. I'm not having to sort of gauge where they are on the field because I'm looking at a 45-degree angle. To me, the NFL is the best game in the world to watch on television, which is why they have become the number one sport. And so the question, in my opinion, becomes, how do you keep people continuing to go to games, physically go to games, particularly for baseball?
I mean, you can't look at ticket prices because ticket prices already are really reasonable in my eyes.
For baseball, they are.
For baseball, yeah, absolutely. So you can't say, okay, it's too high ticket prices. Game times, they vary. I mean, you look at the amount of Sunday afternoon games or Monday afternoon games or evening games, things like that. They vary. Weather, they're in all kinds of weather. Extremely heat most of the time, but I think I don't know. Part of me feels like it's quality on the field, but at times it's probably not. I don't know what the answer is to that. I just think that's one of those things that over time is going to fade
Someone's
away.
going to have to figure it out because otherwise baseball is going to go the way of cricket, right? And the problem is, and this will be the last thing we say on the topic, it's like you need to change the sport, I think, for it to be competitive in the 21st century. But by doing that, you're also diminishing what made it so special in the first place, which is that we have all this incredible baseball statistics that go back over 100 years, and you can compare, to Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and these incredible players. But it's like, well, if we fundamentally change the game or the number of games per season, then all of a sudden that has to be completely thrown out the window. So it's like you completely have to re-engineer the game to survive, but in doing that, you eliminate the history.
I don't even know how you would change the game of baseball to make it any more entertaining in any way or faster or more enlightening. But we are now such a society. We want the answers now. We Google it. We want the touchdowns as fast as we can. We want the hits. We want the highlights. Baseball is a pastime. It's a slow evolving game. So I don't know how you do that. You don't want to turn it into a home run derby. That wouldn't be fun.
I mean, I don't know what you do.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is I enjoy the occasional baseball game to go to as a fan now, and it doesn't even matter if I like the team or not.
No, of course not.
Go to a game,
beer, have a hot dog.
Go to a game and have a beer and a hot dog and sit there and I'm happy as a lamb.
I'm going to throw out a possible idea. Look to Japan, because the Japanese, what they're doing with baseball, they're doing something right there. Alex, you've been to some Japanese baseball games.
Japanese baseball games, they got trumpets and trombones. They have flags waving. Every batter that comes out, they have a different chant for. It is a totally unique experience. I don't know if that's the angle.
It sounds like it's a mix. It sounds like it's a mix of European soccer rolled in with.
There is some of that. So I don't know what you do, but they're going to have to think of something. They have to, because they're dropping.
Yeah.
Quickly, I read something. This will be the last thing I say about that. I read something in the New York Times before the baseball season started. It said something like, don't quote me on this, someone's going to write us, but something like the average NFL fan is 36 years old. The average MLB fan is 58. And all I can think when I read that was a lot of the diehard baseball fans are going to be dead in the next 15 years. I don't mean that to be funny or disparaging, but what do you do when all those people are gone? So, something to think about. All right, hey, so moving on.
Yeah.
You have been in Hershey, Pennsylvania area for the last 7 years. You've been working in event management.
Yes. Yep.
Talk to us about your current role, because I'm really curious about this.
Essentially, I'm an event manager. I am a venue guy, if you will. That's a industry term. I'm the gentleman who stays at a venue. Tours come in for different live events, and I am the guy they talk to. They need to know labor, food, catering, deliveries, things like that. They come in, they talk to me. We talk ahead of time of what lights they're bringing in, what audio they're bringing in, if, how, where is it going to go, stage builds, things like that. So that's all what I do on a consistent basis.
So you're working with the roadies, the musicians, and you're working with everybody.
Not necessarily any kind of musicians or anything like that. It's mainly a tour management. So tour usually appoints one person. I equate my job with an X. If you think of a big X across down, there's the top. It comes to a point, and the bottom. It comes to, and you go up. It comes to that point. So, put the venue on one side, the tour on the up, venue on the bottom. I'm the person at the top with that point, and there's usually one or two people on the bottom of that point. Not to say make all the decisions, but they're the caveats of all the information to help streamline it. The tour rep knows exactly what they need. I know what the venue has, what can be supplied, and what the tour needs, and we just have our conversations throughout. So working with musicians and things like that really don't happen. I usually deal with 1 to 3 people in a day.
Can you tell us like a crazy story about working with maybe a group or a band that may have come through?
The craziest, there's nothing really crazy anymore that you may have heard from the 60s or 70s or 80s or anything like that. I've had different things of temperatures on stage. Hey, we want this temperature on a stage. And it's gotten to the point where some of them, I believe, have even said, we will not play if the temperature on the stage isn't this. But nothing too crazy anymore. That's anything like mind-blowing or anything like that. Some of the stories we hear, I can't validate whether or not they've actually happened. Some of them I may be like, yeah, that sounds about right, or no, that's completely fabricated.
Well, the famous story that people have heard, right, and it's all along the web, is that there was a band, and I forget who it was, might have been Poison or whoever, that in the 80s had a very specific rule in there. What do you call it? Their rider. Their list of requests.
Rider.
And in their rider, it said something like, "We want all of our M&Ms to be blue." And of course,
I believe the story is.
I was going to say green, right?
Green. Okay, green. And of course, it's made these internet news like, "Whoa!" Like these people were crazy. And what you come to find out is that it was actually very logical, because the band had a lot of pyrotechnics. They had a lot of work that was involved in the setup. And they said, listen, if they're not reading the entire rider, then we have concerns about the safety of the entire show. So we're going to put in some random requests, and that'll be the indicator whether they actually read the whole rider or not. That's the understanding of that story I've heard, and it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the modern day Easter egg, if you think about it. You know, they put these requests in that they're like, hey, are they going on? And have I seen them? Yes, I have seen them. I actually had my own boss when he would type up his notes for events on the building side. So he's my own counterpart in this. He would put Easter eggs in the event notes. And the most famous one that I remember was, I was reading it and I walked up to him and I'm like, why are we celebrating Mickey Mouse's birthday? That's not for another month. And he goes, thank you for reading the notes. And that was a building guy, you know what I mean? And so it's one of those things, like, I have had them, and I've read them, and I've questioned them, and I've heard them laugh. I've heard them say, thank you for reading, I appreciate it, and things like that. They're not as popular as they were, but they are out there. But nothing crazy anymore, nothing insane as far as that. But I go back to my old boss who did that, and I sit there and I still remember the word Mickey Mouse's birthday. I was like, what?
You know, Drew, I remember you telling me a story when we were together in New York. Was there something like there was a band that requested like 100 milkshakes or something like that?
No, it wasn't as crazy as that. They had been to the nearby facility before, and they wanted 100 milkshakes because they had heard these milkshakes were phenomenal. And so they went and bought them all for their crew. And it's true. There's that. I have seen
but that wasn't in the rider.
That
wasn't in the rider. They just went out. They just went out and bought.
It was not. It was.
Someone went through a drive-through and said, "I'll have 100 milkshakes."
We called ahead, but yeah, essentially that's what it was. We kind of called and said, "Hey, can you accommodate this request?" And they said, "Yeah, we can do that." I mean, who wouldn't turn down, $100 in profit or 100 milkshakes in profit if you know what I mean? So yeah. We've had some crazy requests and done some different things, but yeah, it's nothing. It's not like the green M&Ms as it was, but there are some stuff.
So you said that things aren't quite as crazy as they used to be. Maybe I'm not sure about this, but when it comes to like groupies, like are those still a thing, or has that changed a lot?
Let's just say in the facilities and areas I've worked in, I have not seen them the way we have heard them in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Obviously, I was not alive then. I don't think you guys were either.
You see the movies and the TV shows where there's hundreds of women on cars and
things go crazy.
Yeah, no. Things go crazy. No, those I don't see those anymore. If you do, you're talking 10 people. And that's not really anything crazy. The closest to a groupie that we see now are these fan bases that follow these groups. And whether I've worked them or not, we can name them. You got your Deadheads, your Parrot Heads, your the band Fish has a huge group. They've all got these nicknames, over. And they Fish Head. Is it Fish Heads? I don't remember the name. I don't remember either. But they travel all over, and they come in waves. I know Parrot Heads, when I was in Charlotte, I actually went to a show, and they were everywhere. And it's like, whoa, this is crazy. And then, if I remember right, Alex, you've been to a Dead & Co. show.
I did.
Right?
It was last summer, and I'm going to see them again this summer. So I guess I've become a little bit of a deadhead. But I'm not, like, following them around. Like, I'm not like touring with them.
But has the thought ever crossed your mind of like, I'm going to go to 2 or 3 shows in a row?
This is the first band I've ever felt that way with. And the reason is, in short, because I think most bands, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think most bands you have sort of a set list, and you play that set list with maybe minimal differences, show to show to show to show. Versus you talk about a band, I mean, these bands that you've mentioned, I think why they have such a cult following is because they play an entirely different set. Entirely. Every single night. And I remember when I went to my first Dead & Co. show last year, and people were like, I've always wanted to hear this song. Right? Whatever it was.
Yep.
And I've seen them 10 times, and I've still not heard them play that song yet. But the one night that I didn't go to the show that I wanted to go, that was the night they played it, right? And you're like,
oh yeah,
I get it, I get it. Now, am I gonna give up my life tour with them? No, but I get it. I get the fascination.
Absolutely, no. It's there are some groups out there. We've named a few of them that can do that. They have enough in their repertoire and their catalog of songs that you can go to 30 shows and never listen to the same song twice.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me, some of those groups. And I've honestly only in the last few years been enlightened with some of those groups. I've never had to work those. A lot of the groups I've done are more of your mainstream tours and things like that. But I've been going out to the smaller ones and things like that.
Awesome.
Hey, so we're switching gears here. I heard a rumor.
Yes.
I heard a rumor that... So I know you listen to a lot of our episodes. I heard a rumor that you got free food by dropping intel from listening to an episode of our show. You gotta tell us that story.
Yeah, so I currently live in South Central Pennsylvania, or Central Pennsylvania. I know we've had that debate, but I went up based on, and you're gonna have to tell me his name. I
Justin
forget.
Sachoka.
Yes, I'll never get the last name. QVC guy. I talked about NEPA pizza up in that area, and so I decided because I love to hike and explore now. I went up to Boulder Field up in Northeast. It's a park.
That place is cool
in Northeast Pennsylvania. It's really cool. I glad you've been. It's amazing. And I'm sitting there the entire time I'm walking through this Boulder Field. I'm like, I've got to try this NEPA pizza. Like, I remember hearing about it. It just sounded good, and I'm listening to it. It's just, all right. So I listened to that episode one more time as I'm walking and hiking through the woods. And I went, okay. And I got in my car, and I was like, all right, what's the name of this restaurant that he referenced? And I Google it, and I drive the 35 minutes out of my way to go here. And I sit down at the bar, and I sit there, and it's beginning to rain, and the waitress hands me, and I go, all right, I don't need this menu. And she's like, what? And I said, I've been listening to this podcast, and they tell me I need to order NEPA pizza. Explain this to me. So she gave it out to me, and she ended up giving me some free the pizza, and I bought a beer and tipped her well and everything. But she gave me the variety. So there was a red sauce, and I believe there's like a white sauce pizza. And
there's onions and without onions.
There was two different types.
Make sure to get that.
Right. Yeah. And so she gave me kind of like a smorgasbord of this NEPA pizza.
That's awesome.
And I sat there and ate it. And I had, a beer or two, and I just was like, I only did this because of this episode. And the only reason I went was because y'all.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Justin. Yes, thank you, Justin. And yes, anyone who's ever in northeastern Pennsylvania, highly suggest. You may not have to find that specific spot, but NEPA pizza is worth the calories.
Oh, yeah. No. Speaking of calories and ways to get rid of them, right? Could you tell us about your running journey? Because I know you and I have been running. You mentioned running earlier, and it was cool. You and I actually went for a run earlier this year. Could you talk to us about your running journey and, how you were motivated and even what you're doing today with it?
Yeah, so it actually starts way back around my 30th birthday, which would have been 2017. December 2017, I ended up in the ER around Christmas with a small boo-boo. It's not the end of the world. Fast forward to January 2018, I realized on my scale, when I went for a follow-up, I was 360 some odd pounds, which is not where I want to be. The doctor's like, we're going to put you on all this medication. And I literally told the doctor, give me 1 year. So I started walking.
Wait, Drew, I want to interrupt you. I want to make sure I understand. You said, I don't want to get on your medications that you're prescribing me. Give me a year to make improvement in my life. What did he say?
Correct. 1 year. I said, he was kind of taken back, and he kind of was like, he kind of wanted to encourage me. And I said, listen, I'm 30. I know my numbers aren't great, but am I going to die if I don't take this medication in the next year? And he kind of just said, well, your numbers aren't going to improve. I said, well, if I improve, then I don't need the medication. But
pretty good logic.
Give me 1 year. 1 year to get my numbers down. And, what more motivation than you're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life?
Wow.
So I was like, okay, let's do this. So I started this walking journey with help of friends and family. May 18th, 2018, I set a goal to walk 3 miles a day. That lasted 1 month, because that 1 month I bumped it to 3.5 miles a day. After that, I bumped it to 4 miles a day. Black Friday, I went and bought a Fitbit and said I'm doing 10,000 steps a day. Of 2018, I have not missed a day since. It has now been, at that point, call it 3.5 years. I've not missed a day of 10,000 steps at all for any reason. So fast forward a little bit.
When did you start running? Because you you were just committed to walking for a
Right.
long time, right?
At that point. But after 2 years and you realize 10,000 steps is a long way, you want to start moving. So prior to that, I started dabbling in running a little bit because it makes your steps go faster, right? Pandemic hit. I'm going to start running. I need to burn out this extra energy. I'm sitting around doing nothing. And I had a coworker who challenged me, said, let's run a 5K. I said, okay. So we didn't see each other. We were all sitting at home, and she messaged me one day and goes, hey, I ran a 1 mile without running. Or I ran
walking.
1 mile without stopping. And I literally, without walking. And I went, okay, if you can do it, I can do it. So I ran a mile. And then the next week, I got the message, I ran 2 miles without walking. And I'm like, whoa. Challenge accepted. If you can do it, I can do it. I got up to 3. They stopped at 3. Then April 11th, 2020, I ran for 9 miles straight. I only remember that because nephew's birthday, I ran a 5K for every year he was born.
Wow.
So I ran 9.3 miles. That was the longest run up until then. Up until then, the longest run I've ever done was 4 miles. So I just one day just went. And it's just been this, friends have talked to me about what to do, what not to do, things like that. Running, make sure you have the proper running shoes. Changing them out after certain miles. Like, I didn't know that. I was running in whatever I had. I didn't know that I was supposed to be wearing, like, running shoes. And I was an athlete. And I didn't know this. And then mentalities. You know, I know, Ron, you and I run. The one mentality I have is you never walk on hills. You run the hills. You can walk everywhere else. Do not walk on the hills. You run the hills because it'll make you better.
Wow. And so do you mind?
Anytime you're running,
Do you mind? So you were at 360 at your highest. How much weight did you lose before you started running, and then since you started running? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you made that commitment. You were walking for a long time.
Yep. So that first window, if you will, was about 45 to 50 pounds. I dropped to about 310 and held tight. And then I started running, and at my lowest point, I was at 241, and now I float around 245 to 250 is where I've been floating since last
So a good
October.
110 pounds from your highest.
110, yes, from my recorded highest. Because I was weighed in January, I really didn't start my journey until May. I don't know what my weight actually was, but my last recorded height was 360. So I could have been higher, I could have been a smidge lower, I don't know. But yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, you know, I'll say this, as someone who, I'm not a runner, I think for listeners, sometimes it's hard to be motivated by the running. It's like, oh, you ran and you lost weight. Good for you. You ran. I hate running. The fact that you lost 45, you said pounds, just from walking,
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. And I think that's inspiring for people. Not to take away from the running, but I think for a lot of people, the running is like, that seems too aggressive. That's too far out in the future. I need to just start with what's in front of me.
Yeah. And again, it was a slow build up. You know, I started at 3.5, 4 miles, and then I jumped to 10,000 steps, which is about 5 miles. But it's the no excuses. I haven't missed a day of my step goal in over 40 years. It's no excuses. If it's raining, it's snowing, it's sleeting, if I'm tired, I've gotten out of bed at 11:30 at night to go finish my steps. It's dedication and the no excuses mentality of, I want to get better. I want to be healthier. And just walking will get you there. You just got to get creative sometimes. Parking far away from the grocery store and then walking up and down every aisle. If it's snowing, my favorite thing to do is go to different stores and walk up and down every aisle. Who says you got to buy anything?
Now that
You don't have to buy
that
anything.
is some good advice, especially if you live in the north, where you have some rough winters. But don't give yourself the excuse. I like what you just said there.
Yeah. Don't give yourself an excuse. Like I'm waiting for the day for me to have a legitimate excuse that I can't do my 10,000 steps. I have driven from Minneapolis, Minnesota to Coudersport, Pennsylvania in a day, which is 16 and a half hours of drive time, and still managed to get my 10,000 steps in a day.
That's insane and awesome. And I think one thing you've hit on that I think is really important that people don't maybe realize is the body adapts a lot quicker than you give credit for. The big question is, like, are you willing and able to kind of push yourself a little bit? And yes, that means inconvenience, right? But I think for everybody, if you started running today, the first week or two, it sucks. Like, I get it. We've all been there.
Walking.
Even walking, it sucks. Because, especially in the summer, it really sucks. But you kind of realize how quickly you start to adapt. Your body starts to get used to it. And the first time you run, I've read a few books that have kind of talked about this phenomenon where it's like you think, oh, I'll just run a mile. And you run maybe half a block, if that, and you're winded and you're like, I got to walk. And it sucks because you're immediately like, geez, how am I this out of shape? And I think it's so easy to get down on yourself. But one of the cool parts I think about running is that, yes, there is a competitive aspect to it, but the only real person you're competing with is yourself. It's all with you. And that's kind of the cool thing I like about it as a sport or, method of fitness, is that you go out, you do it. And I mean, even today, so prior to the podcast, I think, Andrew, you gave me a kudos on my run today. It was it felt like 98 degrees based on the temperature and humidity in Georgia. I did a 4-mile run on that. And it sucks. And last week I was literally running with flip-flops because, to your point, get new running shoes if you need them, because bad idea to let heel injuries build up. But yeah,
I ran a little over 3.5 miles before the podcast. Good job, man. Today. Thank you. And it was part of my phenomenon, believe it or not, with all this and me and everything I've become. Our company started a walking running club.
Cool.
And so, like, I ran as part of today. This was week number, 3 or 4 or something like that. So I ran today, and the hard part for me is I've been running, and I've ran a half marathon, and I'm thinking about running a half marathon in October. But I'm going 3-4 miles like it's nothing for me. But these folks that are just trying to get back into it, they're going like a mile, and then they're walking another mile, and they're trying to come back.
Several years ago.
At the beginning,
Right. And it's one of those things where I just talk to them like, just keep going. You have to give it, keep going. Once a week is not going to cut it. 2 to 3 times a week is good. I know, Ron, you go about every day, if not every day.
Well, today's day 202 of my run streak, where I've done at least a mile every day, and all of those have been outdoor miles. So if I get to 365, then I can officially register as a run streak on the Run Streak database. So that's my goal.
So how much have you lost in weight or muscle gain or anything?
So
like
I've
that?
lost about 40 pounds, which I'm thrilled with. I think if you look at like the podcast, especially now that we've been video, if you look at the video from the beginning of this season versus now, you could probably see a little bit of a difference. And I've also been including some strength training in there. So I'm going very gradual with that. But running, I think what I found is, to your point about walking and getting into the running, is that it's once you kind of find yourself getting into a good routine, it's a good way of kind of challenging yourself. And I think it seems hard the first time, but it's like so many things where once you've had an opportunity to kind of build up and learn a little bit, you can kind of turn it into its own thing. Where for me, I like it because it's time where I can go out and let my mind kind of wander. Well, physically, you can just go out and run. And even like when you and I we ran through Charleston, South Carolina. One of the fun things that we did there was we didn't really have a set path or course. We're just like, okay, go right, go left, go straight. And it was a cool way to see Charleston. And it was really fun.
And to this day, that was one of my favorite runs of all time in the years I've been doing this. Because you're right, we got to see a city unlike any other way. We literally went right, left, whatever way we wanted. We got to run through it. We were exercising, and the way you feel afterwards.
That's great.
It's amazing. It's a great feeling. That was just a great run. Much better than the run the day before. No offense to that run, but
For sure.
I feel like we should have done both of them through the city of Charleston, which was just great. And I've been doing that too, where I go to Tampa and I run up and down different areas of Tampa or different cities and just run through them. It's a nice way to see the city in a different light. You're kind of just passing by real quick and you kind of see different things in different light, and also just knowing runners turn into a quick family.
Oh, for sure.
5Ks and different groups, people see you and they chit chat and everything. It's really nice. So yeah, even if you're not a runner like Alex, it's okay. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
But start walking and just keep going, and you'll get there someday. Don't ever think you can't do it.
Love it.
It's
Hey,
well,
last
great.
question of the night. Speaking of getting there someday,
yes. Oh,
I have to
great
ask you
segue.
this.
I know where you're
A
headed.
lot of
I know where you're headed.
expectations this year for the Buffalo. And we've already talked
concerningly
about the Bills.
high, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like,
we've already talked about the Bills. We don't need to know. We already know you're passionate. You fall into the same category as Ron. Where will you be? Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl.
Ooh. When they win the Super Bowl, I have not determined what part of the country I'm going to be in yet. There is a chance that I will venture to Buffalo and try to watch it in Buffalo. There's a part of me that it goes that family aspect where I might just try to go home and watch it with my pops, But I know I'm going to be somewhere with someone or somebody or a big family. But I do know where I'm going to be a couple days after they win it, and that will be in Buffalo, New York. And
it's going to be cold, and no one will care.
And it's going to be great. Nope. No. And I mean, the expectations are so high this year. I'm nervous, scared, but excited. I cannot wait to see what this team does. I just hope that they live up to what we've been talking about for the last 2 years, and just get over that hurdle and
Well, I can't wait to celebrate.
beat the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I can't wait to celebrate with the both of you.
That's what.
for sure.
It's gonna be a good time.
Green Bay Packers. That's what you're calling it right now. Okay.
Buffalo over Green Bay in the Super Bowl.
Love it. Well, honestly, if that ends up happening, if that ends up being the prediction, and that ends up happening, because we'll know 2 weeks ahead of time. We'll have to have you on for like a little mini-sode. But you're calling it right now.
Yeah.
Bills, Packers.
I think the Packers might be able to do it. I don't know. I think outside of the Rams repeating, I don't know who else.
Yeah.
And I don't. Maybe the Rams, but I'm going to call Packers. I don't know who you guys are thinking.
I like it.
That's where I'm
like
going.
it. Drew, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We've known you our whole lives, and we appreciate your support as a listener, and now we really appreciate you as a guest. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you.